By the end of today, you will have survived a plane crash. You will have walked out of a burning wreckage that killed 143 other people. You will have been called a miracle by every news channel covering the story. And you will know with absolute certainty that it was not a miracle, because miracles don't leave evidence. And what you pulled out of that wreckage before anyone else arrived, the thing currently sitting in your hand, is the most dangerous piece of evidence you have ever touched. The question is not whether you survived. The question is whether whoever brought that plane down knows you did. You are a consultant, mid-30s, traveling for work, the same route you have flown 11 times this year alone. Window seat, noise-canceling headphones, a report you need to finish before landing. Nothing about this day feels different from any other. The airport is busy. You clear security without incident, you find your gate, buy an overpriced coffee, and sit down to wait. The flight is on time. That should have been your first sign. In your experience, flights are never on time. You board without incident, find your seat, 14A, window, left side, stow your bag overhead, sit down, put your headphones on. The man sitting next to you, in 14B, falls asleep before takeoff. You envy him that. You have never been able to sleep on planes. The safety demonstration happens. You don't watch, you know it by heart. The engines build, the plane accelerates. You feel the familiar lurch of wheels leaving the ground. Everything is completely normal for exactly 47 minutes. The first sign is the sound. Not turbulence. You know what turbulence sounds like. This is different. A deep mechanical sound from somewhere beneath the cabin that doesn't belong, low and wrong and growing. Then the lights flicker. Then the oxygen masks drop. The cabin fills with the sound of people understanding simultaneously that something is very wrong. Not panic yet, just that terrible collective intake of breath that happens in the half-second between normal and not normal. The plane tilts sharply to the left. You grab your armrest. The man in 14B wakes up. His coffee goes across his shirt and he says something you can't hear over the noise. The pilot's voice comes on. 3 words, clipped and controlled. The voice of someone trained to sound calm in situations that are not calm. Brace for impact. What happens next takes approximately 4 minutes. It feels like 40. The plane comes down in a field approximately 12 kilometers from the nearest town. The left wing catches first. The impact splits the fuselage somewhere behind business class. Fire starts immediately. You can see it through your window before you have even fully processed that you have stopped moving. You are alive. You don't understand why yet. You move before you think. That is the only way to describe it. Your body makes the decision before your mind catches up. You unbuckle. You stand. Your left leg protests sharply but holds. You move toward the nearest gap in the fuselage wall. The smoke is thick. You pull your jacket over your nose. You move. Outside, the air hits you like something physical, cold and sharp and real. You turn around and look at what you just came out of. The plane is in 3 sections. The tail section is largely intact, but the doors are jammed and smoke is already filling the inside. The middle section, where you were sitting, is torn open on one side, the side you just came through. The front section is on fire. You are the only person standing outside. You call out, nothing. You call again. The only answer is the fire. You stand there for 30 seconds that feel like 30 years, processing the scale of it, the silence of it. And then you see it. 10 meters away, half buried in the churned earth thrown up by the impact, small, metallic, catching the light from the burning front section. You walk toward it without knowing why. You pick it up. It is a device, small enough to fit in your palm, partially melted on one side from the heat, but intact enough for you to understand what it is. You have seen something like this before. 3 years ago, on a consulting project for a government security contractor. It is a signal detonator, remote triggered, designed to interface with an aircraft's fuel management system. This plane did not crash. It was brought down.
You stand in the middle of a field surrounded by 143 people who are no longer alive, and you close your hand around the detonator. You hear the sirens before you see the lights. You have approximately 2 minutes before the first responders arrive. In those 2 minutes, you make 3 decisions that will define everything that comes after. Decision 1, you put the detonator in your jacket pocket, not because you have a plan, but because something tells you that if this device disappears into an official evidence chain before you understand what it means, it will simply disappear. Decision 2, you say nothing about it to anyone, not yet. Decision 3, you stay exactly where you are, in the middle of the field, looking like a survivor and nothing else. The first fire truck arrives, then an ambulance, then 2 police cars, then more of everything. People are suddenly everywhere, moving quickly, purposefully, doing the things that people who train for disasters do when disasters happen. A paramedic reaches you first, young woman, focused, professional. She takes your face in both hands and looks at your eyes. She says, "Can you tell me your name?" You tell her. She says, "Is there anyone else? Did you see anyone else get out?" You look back at the wreckage. You say, "No, just me." She nods, guides you toward the ambulance. You walk with her. The detonator is in your left jacket pocket. Your hand does not shake. The hospital is controlled chaos. You have a fractured rib. You find this out when the doctor presses your side and you make a sound you have never made before. You have burns on your right forearm. You have a cut above your left eye that needs 4 stitches. You have a bruise on your left thigh that is developing impressive color. You are, by every measure, extraordinarily lucky. The word miracle gets used 4 times before you've been in the hospital an hour. A police officer sits in the corner of your room, waiting to take your statement. Standard procedure for a crash of this scale. Everyone who can talk gets talked to. Your jacket is on the chair beside your bed. The detonator is in your jacket pocket. You give your statement carefully. You describe the sound, the tilt, the impact, the smoke, the gap in the fuselage. You describe coming out of the wreckage and seeing the scale of it. You describe calling out and hearing nothing. The officer writes everything down, asks 3 follow-up questions, thanks you for your time. He leaves. You wait until the door closes, then you reach into your jacket pocket. The detonator is still there. You hold it in both hands under the hospital blanket and think very carefully about what you know and what it means. 143 people are dead. This device is why, and whoever triggered it doesn't yet know that someone picked it up. You think about who was on that flight. You didn't know most of them. You rarely do on business routes. Faces in the departure lounge, a voice ordering a drink 2 rows ahead, the man in 14B who fell asleep before takeoff and whose name you never learned. But you knew one person on that flight, Marcus Webb. You didn't see him board. You boarded early and had your headphones on, but you saw his name on the passenger list when you checked in. He was in business class, row 4. Row 4 is in the front section. The front section is the section that burned. Marcus Webb is the deputy director of a government financial oversight body, a man who 3 weeks ago sent you a message, encrypted through a channel you hadn't used in 2 years, asking if you were available for a confidential consultation. You said yes. He said he would explain everything in person. He said he had documentation of something significant. He said the meeting needed to happen quietly. You were flying to that meeting. You sit in your hospital bed and look at the detonator in your hands. Marcus Webb is dead. You are alive because you were in seat 14A, not because of luck, because whoever built that device needed the front section to burn completely. They weren't trying to kill everyone on that plane. They were trying to kill one person, and they needed it to look like everyone. You check yourself out of the hospital at 11 p.m. The doctor recommends you stay overnight. You sign the form that says you are leaving against medical advice, and you leave against medical advice. The media are outside, cameras and lights, and journalists with microphones saying the word miracle again. You pull your jacket collar up. You keep your head down. You get into a taxi. You give the driver an address that is not your home. You trust your home address with a lot of people. Right now, you don't know which of those people you can trust. In the taxi, you think about your options. You could go to the police, hand over the detonator, tell them everything, let the system work. But the system is the thing Marcus Webb was investigating. Whatever he had documentation of, whatever was significant enough to get 144 people killed, it exists inside the system. If you hand this to the wrong person inside that system, it disappears, and then you disappear. You could go public, find a journalist, get the story out before anyone can stop it.
But you have a partial device and a theory. No documentation, no evidence of what Webb found. Nothing that connects the detonator to any specific person or organization. You need Webb's documentation. You need to find what he was bringing to that meeting. You're the only person alive who knows this wasn't an accident. For now, that is both your greatest danger and your only advantage. You sit in a small hotel room on the 4th floor of a building nobody knows you're in. The detonator is on the table. Your laptop is open. You are bruised, fractured, stitched, and running on 3 hours of adrenaline and cold hospital coffee. And you are more focused than you have ever been in your life. You think about the 143 people on that plane. The man in 14B who fell asleep before takeoff. The voice 2 rows ahead ordering a drink. The faces in the departure lounge who had somewhere to be and people waiting for them, and lives that ended in a field 12 kilometers from the nearest town. They were not the target, they were the cover. And whoever decided that 143 lives was an acceptable price for a cover story is still out there, still untouched, still certain that the only person who could have exposed them is ash in a burning fuselage. You open a new browser window. You start looking for Marcus Webb's files. You have survived a plane crash. Now you have to figure out what you survived it for. Subscribe to ShadowPOV. New stories every week. Stories that show you the world through eyes you never expected to have.